All right, guys, so our next topic here is a bit of Obi-Wan casting news. So we'll continue our conversation from before with some of these Obi-Wan theories with Vader and everything, I'm sure. But we have news here that I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but I'm going to say Indira Varma. That's what we're going with. She formerly she's been in quite a few things, but most predominantly for me, she was in Game of Thrones, and I really liked her in Game of Thrones. I forget what her character name was, but she was she was with Oberyn Martell initially, and then with the Vipers, the women. What do they call the women assassin people? I can't even remember. It's been so long since I've read the books or watched the show. I can't even remember the three girls from Dorne who whatever they were.
I don't.
They were really cool characters, and she was really good in that show. She's also been in a couple. There were some BBC shows she was in. Alaria Sand was her name in Game of Thrones. There we go. Man, the name of the group of women now is just bothering me. I don't know what the hell they were called. Either way, this is exciting casting. And me and Rick both think that there's a good chance this is all based on nothing more than the looks, like her look. But we think she could be playing Satine. All right, that's what we're thinking.
Oh yeah.
So, but Rick, speaking of which, what do you think about this? Elaborate more. Like, what you think? You think Satine will be popping up in here, and you think she'll be playing Satine, or you think she'll be some new original character?
Well, there's a lot of rumors. I'm on a lot of Facebook Star Wars groups, and that's what everybody's kind of speculating. But as soon as I saw her, I mean, outside of the hair color, I think she looks pretty similar, like facial structure wise and all that. And Obi-Wan and Satine, everybody thinks they like got it on, never showed it, but they're pretty close.
Speaking of which, that's what I always wanted Rey's lineage to be. I wanted us to find out that she was Obi-Wan and Satine's love child.
Well, there's a kid actually that is apparently the nephew of Bo-Katan. His name is Corky Kryze, and he bears a striking resemblance to Obi-Wan, and people speculate he was from the Clone Wars show. People think that maybe, just maybe, they had a kid together and didn't tell anybody, but they've never really, there's no truth to that, I don't think, but that would be my guess. It would make sense to have flashback scenes of him and Satine, like him on Tatooine, like, man, I miss that girl, but I don't know.
It's definitely possible.
Yeah.
Right now, going into it, I think I would lean more towards her being Satine than...
Who else would she be?
Yeah, because if not, then I think she would be some original character, but...
Yeah.
She's...
Maybe his girl on Tatooine or something?
Yeah, I just figure it's got to be something more... I mean, she could be just someone on Tatooine, maybe. Like, I don't know. John, what do you think? You think that she's going to be some new original character? You think she's going to be Satine? What do you got? You got any other theories that we haven't heard?
I'm out of my depths here, man. I don't even know who Satine is. Like, I'm assuming she's a Clone Wars or Rebels character.
She's the Duchess of Mandalore.
I'm making my way through. I actually have. I think I've got one episode left on season 1 of Clone Wars. So, and that's just starting in the past like 3 weeks. So, I'm making my way through Clone Wars. I hope to catch up eventually, but yeah, I don't know who Satine is. So this is all new to me. I think it's a great casting though, because I've loved her in Game of Thrones. So I mean, they're keeping their casting quality at the high peak that they've put it.
True.
She's Bo-Katan's sister.
Yeah.
Satine herself is the Duchess of Mandalore.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's why
killed by Maul.
Yeah, and that's why like there's the whole lineage there with like Bo-Katan being the rightful ruler. Not rightful, but next in line lineage wise, that's why she's supposed to, has her claim to the whole Darksaber thing and being the ruler of Mandalore.
She looks strikingly similar to yeah.
She could definitely pull it off. Like that's I'm I'm leaning towards Satine. But I could totally see her being like, see, she's been with Obi-Wan. Her and Obi-Wan, they got a thing going on, man.
They do. So. And Obi-Wan actually said at one point that he would leave the Jedi Order for her. So
yeah, they have a lot of...
They definitely love each other. Like,
yeah, they definitely do. And they touch on that in Clone Wars, like, real heavy. So that's where that whole thing... Obviously, you can see from the pictures here. But there's... Once they get into the whole Mandalore arc, which is honestly probably the better part of the show. That's when like Maul comes into play, and all that kind of stuff. But that's when she's introduced, and like she was a cool character in herself. She was fine, like not as like probably not as exciting as like a Bo-Katan kind of character as far as the action goes, but the love interest part of it would be pretty compelling as far as just like Obi-Wan is concerned, because that's not something that we ever saw him really be. The only person we ever saw him be really affectionate with at all was Anakin.
Yeah.
And that was more of a father-son, best friend kind of relationship, more so than like Anakin had Padme. Obi-Wan, all the movies we've seen him in, he was a hermit. He didn't express any of that. Then
Yeah.
you finally see in the Clone Wars that there was someone there for him. So it might be cool to see him, if they explore that a little bit more. They could maybe retcon some stuff and add in, like you said, that, what was his name? Buddy or whatever?
Corky.
Corky?
There's a picture of him right there with Bo-Katan.
What, is this guy?
No,
I'm just kidding.
that's a Rodian. Next to that picture.
Oh, this fella here?
Yeah, that's him. And there's like memes people have actually made where they put somebody in. It's like an actual picture of Obi-Wan and then meeting a Mandalorian, like they somehow photoshopped it or whatever. And he's like apparently going to tell Obi-Wan, he's like, by the way, I'm your kid. And I don't know.
We'll see.
He's Mandalorian.
We'll see. I'm probably.
He looks like Obi-Wan.
I could see it. I mean, I could definitely see it. It's definitely hard to say. I mean, because these Clone Wars animations. One thing that I never really, until like I've said this before, the most recent Clone Wars, like episode, what was it, season 7, the most recent one?
Yeah.
The environments looked incredible, like the animation for it, but I've never been a fan of the character
Do you
designs.
remember the original Clone Wars cartoon from the
Yeah,
early?
the
Dude,
2D
those
anime
characters
one?
looked crazy.
Yeah, that was like that was almost anime looking.
It was like just a cartoon, and
Yeah.
they looked wild, like Dooku especially. But
Well, that's where most famously Dooku gets his wheezing from.
yeah,
Because Mace
you mean
Windu.
Grievous?
Oh yeah, sorry. Mace Windu crushes Grievous's chest plate there when he's trying to escape, and then Grievous gets his. That's why he's wheezing when you run into him in Revenge of the Sith.
No. More you know.
Yeah, never explain it otherwise. You just get introduced to him in the movies, and he's just like, "Why is this guy wheezing? He's a
Yeah.
robot." And like, you have no
Coughing
idea
and
why.
wheezing and
Yeah. It's like, well, he used to have lungs.
yeah. Well,
Like-
he's got like a chest cavity that has like I think lungs and
Mhm.
a heart and that sort of stuff. But
He's supposed to be the precursor to Vader, right? I mean, he's the Empire's early attempts to
he's not
Mech-
like Sith or anything.
mechanize a living person, right?
I forget how that all worked out.
I don't know what I thought. My Grievous lore is a little.
Dooku trained him.
I always thought, I mean, not again having no knowledge of Clone Wars and Rebels and what takes place in between the movies. My impression was always that George Lucas threw Grievous in there because he's like the de-evolution of Vader. Vader is, a human that they almost perfect the mechanized part of to keep him alive. Grievous is their kind of very beta attempts to do that to
Yeah.
keep somebody alive with mechanics.
I mean, it kind of does rhyme in that way anyway, because it is, from what I understood, he was somebody who had a normal, like, biological form, but like he lost the limbs, and like like just like with the wheezing chest and everything, it was like he didn't by choice necessarily become a cyborg, but they
And I
needed
always-
to.
Yeah, I always thought the wheezing in watching Attack of the Clones, I always thought that the wheezing, I was like, oh, that's pretty clever because Vader has that very mechanical voice, that he does. Yeah, and I just always felt that, just as the way the body was, but the voice too, or the breathing too, was the precursor of what Vader would do later on. Grievous was, that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What do you guys think too before we wrap up the Obi-Wan arc while we're here? What do you think's going to happen with the Anakin in here? You think, because you mentioned it before when we were talking, like, we've known, and it's always been implied, that Obi-Wan never left Tatooine. But it was also been implied that they didn't. They're in A New Hope when they have their little tango. I don't really. Actually, a tango is more intense than that damn sword that saber
that was
fight
the
was.
worst.
But like, it is heavily implied that their last meeting was on Mustafar. Like, that's essentially what the understanding has been. That's what they pretty much, that line where, last time I was but the
Student.
student, now master, whatever. That whole line. Like, it was always supposed to be like, okay, they haven't, like, Mustafar was that. And I think George has even been
Sure.
on record saying that. So they're obviously retconning this in some way because we know Vader's coming back. What do you think they're gonna do with that? You think he does go off world? You think Vader comes to him?
I think Vader. Go ahead.
Was the announcement that Hayden? I know that they announced Hayden Christensen is coming back. Was the announcement? Did they specify that he's coming back as Vader?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they said that, and they also said it's going to be
Okay.
like the rematch of the century or something. So like they literally confirmed like they're gonna have a fight again.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But
So they can kind of easily retcon it into where it's like, well, this just becomes the last time they met, as opposed to Mustafar, even though it was obviously always Mustafar. But either way, I don't think though that, like, I think this is gonna have to suggest that Obi-Wan goes off world though, because if Anakin or Darth Vader finds out that Obi-Wan is on Tatooine, one, he hates Tatooine.
he
Like,
hates sand.
He hates sand, so he's not going to want to go back to Tatooine to begin with. But if he goes back, if he somehow learns that Obi-Wan is there, wouldn't he find Luke at that point? He's still at the same house. Like, Anakin's been there before. Like, he went there and met freaking Uncle Owen. Like,
Yeah.
so I feel like the thing would have to take Obi-Wan off world because it was just, I don't know. It's just, if he comes to Tatooine, it just becomes too messy, like, canonically, because it's like, well, how did he not? We know Vader always struggled with like the light side. It's like, wouldn't you think he'd want to go back to where his mom died and all that shit? See Uncle Owen and all them.
You'd think.
Like even if he did it from afar, like wouldn't he just?
Well, in
like-
comics, there's actually something where Vader does go back to Tatooine and he slaughters like an entire village of sand people, kind of like he did in Attack of the Clones. And I don't think the comics though, they're just legends at this point. So,
well, if they were a newer comic, then it would technically be canon.
I think it is pretty new too, from what I understand. But
Yeah, but Disney and their whole canon thing, they've been contradicting everything that they say.
yeah,
It's if it. Because now I don't know what they're going to do, because they used to say, well, it's as long as it doesn't contradict the movies, then it's canon. Not how canon works, but
no.
I don't know what that means for the shows now, because it's like, okay, well, if it happens in the show but contradicts the movie, what happens then? Is that canon? So I don't know. But either way, let's have wait and see.
Yeah.
You think Anakin's gonna come to Earth or Tatooine, or you think Obi-Wan's going off world, John?
I I don't know, man. I guess I mean, honestly, it would make sense for Obi-Wan to leave, I guess, at some point, despite the fact that I feel like it was very strongly implied. I mean, Luke knows who Ben Kenobi is in A New Hope, and it's not like he just. I mean, like, he seems very familiar. He knows where to go to find him too. It's not just So he knows where he lives and stuff. I feel like he gives the sense that he's known him his whole life almost. So it would be weird, but that doesn't mean that Obi-Wan didn't leave occasionally for a couple weeks or a month at a time. And obviously Luke wouldn't necessarily know about that when he's a child. He wouldn't be keeping tabs on that closely. So I don't know. It could work that way. It's
the only thing that I honestly like is throwing me off with this whole Obi-Wan show is that when we first get introduced to Obi-Wan Kenobi or Ben in A New Hope, the droid says Obi-Wan or whatever. Like Luke tells him like, "Oh, looking for Obi-Wan Kenobi," and he's like, "Oh, that's a name I haven't heard in X amount, like a long time." It's
Yeah.
like, well, obviously, like that's not true at this point. Like, this isn't that much before this. Like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? He's implying that he hasn't heard it since freaking Revenge of the Sith happened. Can't
Unless
be
this
true
is
now.
like, unless this is right on the tails of the end of, unless the Obi-Wan series happens right on the tail of Revenge of the Sith, and you know Vader tracks him down because of my biggest question is like, why bring Hayden Christensen back besides just being able to say, hey, that guy in that suit there is Hayden Christensen. It's just a guy in a suit at that point. I mean, unless they're going to have Vader with his helmet off at some point, in which case it's, are they going to put all the prosthetics on Hayden Christensen to show him all scarred and stuff? And even then, it's kind of like, so I almost wonder if they're going to do some flashbacks or something too with the two of them. Because otherwise I have a hard time really, besides being able to say it's Hayden Christensen in the suit, I don't know why you bring him back.
Well, I think, like I was telling you, Rob, what if the entire Obi-Wan show is based on flashbacks? Like Obi-Wan telling his story to somebody, basically. And I mean, you could introduce so many characters if that was the case. And it's just like you're watching stuff from the past pop up, and that's where you're seeing like Satine and Vader and who knows who else, but
I don't
that's
know.
my theory.
They might do the plan. I could honestly see it being more or less just a thing where us knowing that it's Hayden Christensen is the cool thing about it, and then they could do like a couple scenes with Vader with his helmet off, or do what they well, not so much or. This is more of a, it could be both and, not either or, right? So there could be flashbacks. There could also be Vader with his mask off, but then there could also be what happened in Rebels with Ahsoka versus Vader, where Vader's helmet gets kind of damaged, so you can see him through it.
Yeah, that happens to him a lot.
Yeah, so I mean, they could do something like that during this rematch, where like Vader's helmet gets damaged, so then Obi-Wan gets to look Anakin in the eyes, and vice versa.
Or what if he just takes it off to show him, like, this is what you made me?
He's got to be able to breathe.
True.
You know what I mean?
True.
But it is true, because I mean, it is kind of Obi-Wan's. Actually, is it Obi-Wan's fault or is it Anakin's fault?
It's Anakin's fault.
It's Anakin's
He told
fault.
him he had the high ground.
He did. He had the high ground.
He chose to jump at him.
He did. He didn't. He underestimated his power. He underestimated it. But I guess realistically, he underestimated Obi-Wan's power, or at least his ability to go sync. So, question is, guys, what do you think about all this? Do you think that what is her name again? Yeah, Indira Varma. Do you think she's going to be playing Satine, or do you think she's going to be playing a new original character for the Obi-Wan series? And what do you think this Vader coming back for the Obi-Wan series means? Do you think he's going to be making a trip back to Tatooine, place he hates that's full of sand? Or do you think this means that Obi-Wan's going to be taking some off-world trips, flashbacks, whatever it is? Let us know down in the comment section below.